Okay, so the agenda for this evening, we're going to be looking at an overview of the early years expansion grant, expansion and the wraparound agenda. June's going to introduce the funding and about how the claims will work, and want to assure you that there isn't going to be many changes. Julia is going to provide you with some information around the sufficiency. We're going to give you some info about the survey that we put out in the autumn term, and then looking about future support, and then Nikki will present about the training, and then that will give us a bit of time at the end for questions and answers. What I do want to say and what I want to make very clear is that we are unable to provide you with your hourly base rate information at this point. Apologies. I appreciate how frustrating that is for you. It is just as frustrating for us because we know how important it is that you need to understand what your hourly rates, base rates are going to be. But as an authority, what happens is we receive, and I'm sure you're very much aware because it's been in the social media, we receive an amount from the local government, from central government, and then each local authority has to then calculate what their hourly rate looks like based on the hours that have previously been claimed. And as you know, in Somerset, we operate a estimate, actual and adjustment. So it's absolutely imperative that we actually get those hourly rates correct. The downside of that is that it takes us a little bit more to calculate. And of course, this year, there is the unknown entity of the expansion of the 2-year-old offer and, of course, the 9-month offer come September. Our finance team are diligently, nearly got that wrong, working on those figures and absolutely checking them, because it would be remiss of us to put out hourly rates that potentially could change. What I can tell you is that we hope to have, or not we hope to have, we will have that information ready to go to consult at the partnership meeting on the 7th of February, which is our mechanism of consultation. They will provide the options and the indicative figures on that date. And then on the 8th of February, I'm working with June's team to look at being able to put out through the provider portal those indicative figures from that consultation on the 7th. So that will go out on the 8th. Obviously, there is always that air of caution that it still has to go to Schools Forum for endorsement, for approval, so to speak, and that goes to Schools Forum on the 21st of February. So as I say, we hope to have you, we will have you, indicative figures on the 8th of February, and then shortly after the 21st of February, as long as Schools Forum agree the hourly rates, we will get those out to you via the portal. So at this moment in time, I appreciate that a lot of you will be on here thinking, we want to know our hourly rates. I'm not able to give you that, but what I can say to you is that if you're looking at forecasting at this moment in time about what your potential income is going to be or what your potential take-up is going to be, what we would say is forecast on your current base rates. The current base rates are not going to go down. However, we can't give you the specific hourly rate at this point. I can also confirm that on the consultation to the partnership on the 7th, we will also be announcing the 9-month hourly rate, which of course doesn't come into play until September. So all 3 rates, or 4 rates, if you include 3 and 4-year-old rates, working families rates, disadvantaged rates for 2-year-olds, and the 9-month, all will be out in the public domain on the 8th or on the 7th, the partnership agreement at the partnership meeting. If you want more information about the partnership meeting, don't hesitate to drop us an email. We can send you the information. Anybody is welcome to the partnership meeting. They just need to book on. So just let us know. But I just wanted to clear it up at the start that we are not going to be able to provide you with those hourly rates tonight. Thank you, Kat. Okay, so you'll be pleased to know it's not me talking all night, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview, and I'm sure you are all well versed in this, that the Spring Budget 23, the announcement that the funded childcare would be extended to children of eligible working parents in England, and then from the funding period after they turn 9 months. So the expansion will be rolled out in phases. From April this year, 15 hours a week offered to eligible children of 2 years of age. That's the term after they turn 2. And then from September 2024, 15 hours a week offered to those children of 9 months to 2 years. And again, that's been confirmed. That is the funding period, not the term, I should say, the funding period following the child turning 9 months. And I know June is going to provide you with lots of information about what that looks like. And then from September 2025, the offer will be increased to 30 hours a week for those children that are eligible, those families that are eligible. So it's a big old programme. So this offer will run in addition to the funded childcare for 2-year-olds of disadvantage or low income families, and the universal early years entitlement for 3 and 4-year-olds, which both equates to 15 hours a week over 38 weeks, or the stretched equivalent. So what have we done as a local authority? We have looked at a sufficiency survey to identify gaps in provision, to look at targeted support. We are considering of grant funding for providers, so I'll talk about that a little bit later on, about what's available, and looking at what numbers we are needing across the county to ensure that we can provide these places, or we can work with you to provide these places for families. And we're introducing an expression of interest form for providers considering to increase their places, or their number of early years places. And again, we'll talk a little bit about that later on. So we've also, running alongside the early years agenda, we also have a huge, and I will say huge, agenda, because the ambition of the government is by September 2026, all primary age children have access to wraparound care from 8 until 6. Currently in term time only. However, you know, the knock-on effect of that is they will eventually be looking at holiday as well. So developing plans for offering training, mechanisms for resource grants and small capital pots. Again, I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then early years providers based on or near school sites may offer key supportive roles to schools to be able to do this. So this might be an enrichment or an enhancement to your current early years delivery. And obviously, we're also looking to our childminding service as well, because obviously childminders are absolutely crucial to be able to deliver some of this rollout, and we will have more updates to come over the coming months. There's been huge amounts of information being thrown at local authorities at the moment, and we've got some pilot authorities that are already rolling this out, where we're learning lessons from. We're waiting for various toolkits, etc. So this, we've got till 2026, we've got a bit of time, but obviously we are working on this, and again I will provide some more information about that later on in the presentation. So hopefully that gives you the overview of where we're at, and an overview of what we're doing, and as I say, I will provide some more information. I am now going to hand over to June, who's our guru of early years funding, and she's going to present the next few slides. So thank you, June.
Hello everybody, just for anybody that wasn't here when I introduced myself earlier on, my name's June Mead and I'm the entitlements team leader. So my team processes all of the entitlements claims that you send in. I'm just going to turn my camera off just so I can focus on the presentation, if that's okay. So what I will go through today is how a family applies for the expanded entitlement and how, as a setting, you check the code and claim the expanded entitlement. So a lot of you I know will already know this, so I do apologise if you're already being told something that you know, but we do get quite a lot of inquiries from settings and from parents about how a family actually applies for the expanded entitlement. So the first thing that a family needs to do is, if they've already got a Childcare Government Gateway account, then they go on to that and they apply through that for any new 2-year-old children that they wish to claim the entitlement for. The parent needs to make sure that that child that they're applying for is added to their account before they get to their reconfirmation window, and that's really important to do. And they will not be able to apply until they are due to reconfirm their current entitlement. So what we've been notified by HMRC is that as long as a parent is already getting tax-free childcare for their 2-year-old child, if the reconfirmation window opens on or after the 15th of February, which we know for an awful lot of families it will be, because for most families it's around the 3 months time, then HMRC have said that they are actually going to send a letter to those parents with a temporary code to ensure that they can claim from the 1st of April. So you may well start to get a lot of parents giving you either copies of the letter or telling you that they've been sent one, and you'll get given a temporary code, which we're presuming will then start with a 11. When the family gets to the point where they need to reconfirm their account, they need to make sure that they do actually do that, even if they've still had that new code sent through to them. It's really important that they reconfirm when they would normally be due to do that, so that any existing entitlement continues on as well. For a family that don't currently have a Childcare Government Gateway account, then they need to go to the Childcare Choices website. And if Kat could go to the next slide, this has literally been updated today. But yesterday when I was looking at this website, it didn't say anything about the funded 2-year-old, it just all said coming soon. Now, thankfully, on the Childcare Choices website, it actually does clearly now say, now accepting applications for 2-year-olds from April, sorry. So what they do is they go onto there, they click on the Apply Now button, and then if you go to the next slide, one of the bits that they will then see on there is when it is that people can actually apply from. So this is really useful information for yourselves and for parents, because it says the points that anyone can apply. And one of the things that obviously it's got on there is the recommended times to apply. And for us, we think it's really important to try and encourage people to apply in those recommended times, because we want everyone to get their code, but for the code to not get it too early, or to there to be any possibility that they're applying too late and therefore not be eligible. So right at the bottom of that slide, you can see that one of the things that they do now tell parents is that you must have a valid code by the end of the month before a new term starts, which is exactly the same as it is for the extended entitlement for 3- and 4-year-olds. So that's all going to work in exactly the same way as it is for 2-year-olds. So for any 2-year-old to be eligible with effect from the 1st of April, they need to be 2 by the 31st of March, and they need to have a code that starts by the 31st of March at the latest. If you can go to the next slide. So I know there's a lot of text on here, but it's very important that parent carers apply for and receive their code before the funding period in which they use it. And that's exactly the same as is for 3- and 4-year-olds. So as I said, to be eligible for the summer funding period, the code must have a start date of 31st of March 2024 or before, and the end date must go after the 1st of April. So if you do have parents that come to you and when you check the code actually ends before the 1st of April. So if it ends sometime in March, that code will not be valid for the 1st of April for the 2-year-olds. So they do need to make sure that they reconfirm, otherwise they will not be eligible and they will have to pay. And then any code, when you check them, that's got a start date after the 31st of March 2024 will not be eligible for the summer 2024 funding period, and the family will have to pay. And we obviously don't want anyone to be in that situation. Okay, if you go to the next slide. So to check the entitlement and for claiming the entitlement, Once a parent has got their code and they've given you all the relevant information, then you log into the portal as you would normally do, and you click on the tile that will say Working Family Entitlement Check. This was previously called the 30 hours check, but obviously at the moment, with effect from April, it won't just be for 30 hours, it will be for the expanded and the extended entitlement. So we're relabeling that as the Working Family Entitlement Check. The portal is down tomorrow morning for the upgrade. So with effect from Friday, but potentially tomorrow afternoon, you will be able to go on and then run all of your checks for the funding for the working families for 2-year-olds. And you'll see there that panel will then be changed, and it will then be called the Working Family Entitlement. Check is run in the same way as it is for the current 30 hours checks. And obviously don't agree to take any expanded hours until you have run the check and you have seen that the child is definitely eligible. So the next screen shows a sample check that I've just run on our test system. So if we go to the next screen, the bit that we're really, really pleased is there, and I sincerely hope it will help an awful lot of you, is it will now actually tell you the funding period when you can actually use the code. So I've done a dummy check for Peggy Carter, and you can then see that it says success because it's found them. That's what the success means. It's found them in the system, and it actually tells you that Peggy will be able to claim with this code from the summer 2024 funding period. And every check that you run after the upgrade tomorrow will then tell you the funding period that you will be able to claim using that code, which is really, hopefully, will be really, really helpful. If you go to the next slide, please. So when you need to submit your claim, you will get the task sent through to you as you normally do. So you go into that task, the screen will look very much like it does now. The only difference is the extended column will also say expanded. So if you're claiming the funding for 2-year-olds that meets the existing benefit related entitlement and parents still apply for that to the local authority, that will still be sent a letter with the start date, and you still need to see that letter the same as it is at the moment. They claim in the normal way by putting the hours in the universal box. If the 2-year-old is eligible under the working family criteria, in the same way that if you've got families that meet the extended entitlement criteria, so they're claiming the additional 15 hours, you put those hours into the expanded or extended hours box. And if families qualify under both criteria, because there will be some subset of families that will qualify under both, they can still only claim 15 hours per week. They can't claim under both, even though they qualify under both. And in this instance, the claim needs to be put into the universal hours because that funding is guaranteed until the child turns 3. So even if they drop out of eligibility under the working family criteria, you know that the other criteria, the current benefit related criteria is guaranteed. So they will then be eligible for 3 until they're 3. So if we go to the next slide, you can then see what I mean by the screen looking the same. So you can see we've still got the same, all the other bits and pieces. So the legal surname, the legal forename, all those other bits. And then it's just the last column. Instead of it just saying extended hours claimed, it will also say expanded. Okay. So the next step that we're looking at is we are looking at monthly payments. We've had quite a few childminders contacting us saying, is that a possibility? And it is something that we are currently exploring to see how we can get that set up. We obviously need to make sure that it works efficiently and that you get your payments on time, because we don't want there to be any possibility that that won't work, and because it's all very important that you get your money. And we will be in touch with any further information on this as soon as possible. Okay, so that is it from me. If anyone's got any questions, if they want to put them in the chat, and then I will answer them at the end, or as we're going along, I'll try and answer them in the chat as well.
That's brilliant. Thank you, June. And just to reiterate that we have listened and we have heard, about childminders in particular requesting a better way of payment for the early years entitlement, and we have taken that on board, and I know that June is working very, very hard with our finance colleagues and also with our software systems to see if we can get these monthly payments moved forward. So we will give you updates as and when. So appreciate your work on this, June, because I know how difficult it is with our existing financial systems. So thank you. Okay, we're now going to start to look at sufficiency. So we're going to give you a little bit of an overview. Or I'm not, Julia is going to give you a little bit of an overview and some detailed information about our sufficiency or our demand for provision. So Julia, over to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sarah. Okay, sufficiency. The local authority has the duty to ensure there are enough childcare places for the parents who want to use them. So that's making sure that there's the right number and in the right place. So we need two bits of information here, and that's the supply of spaces, the number of places we have, and what that demand is. And we're constantly looking at data to help us keep this information up to date. So the supply of spaces, that's the number of places that are out there. So we rely on information from providers, but also from Ofsted registrations and so on, to see how many places we have out there. So we use the number of registered places from Ofsted, also the number of hours that providers are open, and we multiply those together and turn them into a full-time equivalent figure for a standard 30-hour place, 30 hours a week place. So, as I said, we do rely on providers keeping that information up to date so that we have an idea of what is out there. The demand data, that is very difficult to calculate. It's not like schools where one child needs one place and every child goes to school. Here we've got parents using different number of hours at different times for term time or year, short days, long days. They don't necessarily use their nearest provider. That might be where they work or on commuter routes. It's very difficult to pin down what that demand is. And we've just had, we're talking about the expanded entitlements. So of course, we're expecting that demand to increase. Yet we've got no data on what that's likely to look like at the moment. So we look at demand for the different age groups because there is some nationally published figures. This is sometimes all we can go by, but it's not necessarily accurate for our local area. But when we do get that information, again, we turn that into a demand for a 30-hour place so we can directly compare it with the supply. This produces sort of a theoretical data. It is our best guess on what the demand is, and therefore and comparing that with what we have out there. It's constantly changing. We've got new housing developments going up across the county, some of them very large, which of course bringing in new families with new children, and there's going to be a demand from those. So as I say, it is difficult. We look at the theoretical data, but we do then ask providers as well to give us their most up-to-date data. So some of you will have been contacted by Rose when we're looking at the sufficiency of places in a particular area, just to give us your current numbers on roll. Are you half full? Are you completely full? Have you got a waiting list, and so on? And that gives us very, very important and useful data when we're looking and monitoring our sufficiency of places. Many of you will have requested a sufficiency report. Some of you want to look at what your what the population forecast is looking like, just to see how many children might be coming through in your area. And again, we'll look at in detail what we've got in the area. But we also get requests from people thinking about setting up provision. And so we might give them what we think of, what we think the sufficiency is in that area, and they can then decide whether that's something they want to do. So the more up-to-date information we get, the better. Okay. You can record your information using the self-update portal. Some of you already do. This is information like opening hours, your age range, your number of places per age group, your costs and so on. And that not only benefits us when we're looking at sufficiency, but it also is what's posted on the Childcare Finder service. So when parents are looking for childcare, we've got that Childcare Finder page on the Somerset Council website, which parents can go and look to see what's in their area, and it gives them information about your setting. So if you're not sure what information we hold, there's two ways of looking to see what it is. So either go onto the Childcare Finder service and search for your provision or your name, and you'll see what's published there, or you can go onto the self-update portal, and again it'll show you what information we hold, and it will give you an option to update that information as necessary. Okay, so it's important for us, it's also important for parents to have that up-to-date information for when they are searching for childcare. And we've had a lot, if parents can't find the childcare they need, we have a brokerage service. Again, you might have been getting phone calls asking if you've got places. So that information is important. Thank you. Okay, that's the general picture of sufficiency and what we do and what we're looking at and what we're constantly looking at. But we're just going to go through a few slides looking at what the sufficiency looks like in the west of the county. So here we've got what were the old Taunton Deane, West Somerset and Sedgemoor districts. And on the left-hand side there, we've got a picture of this area of the county, green squares showing where there are group providers and blue circles showing where there are childminders. In general, we've had decreasing number of childcare of childminders in the county, and it's a pattern that's across the country. So our childminders are very important to us. But unfortunately, we've got more leaving than we have got joining, and it's something we are hoping to address in the future. If you look at the data there, it's showing we've got a lot of places spare, if you like. We've got surplus spaces, but again, I must stress this is just our theoretical data, and it might have changed since then. Some of the data we use is your maximum capacity, and we know that with recruitment and retention issues, many providers have capped places or closed rooms. So again, I must stress this is just the theoretical data and perhaps not what is out there at the moment. So this is theoretical. There will be a difference between our urban and rural areas as well. What we're seeing is a lot of our rural settings have quite low numbers of children, whereas our urban ones are bursting at the seams with waiting lists. And this is reflecting sort of population demographic change, but also where the housing developments are. And these tend to be around our larger towns, Taunton, Bridgewater, Wellington, and so on. Okay, thank you. So we'll just have a look at, just briefly, some of our hotspot areas. So here's Taunton. again, showing places above the demand, but we know there are plenty of you out there who can't meet the needs of all the parents who want to join you and have waiting lists. We'll go on to what we're doing to help us improve this information in a minute. Bridgwater actually showing a shortfall of places, certainly for babies, and across the board it's the baby places that we're usually short of compared to the other age groups. So you might be thinking, oh well, that's not my experience, but again we'll go on to have a look at this in a bit more detail in a moment. Wellington, yeah, slight shortfall, and we know that there are plenty of significant housing developments planned or have already been built and are also planned around Wellington, so that's just going to make the shortfall even worse. So these are the sort of things we consider when we're planning what we need across the county. Okay, thank you. I think the last one is Burnham and Highbridge. Again, even our theoretical data is showing that we've got a shortfall of baby places there and not a lot of extra 2 and 3 and 4-year-old places. Some degree of surplus places, it's good. It means that parents have a choice, and that's another thing that we need to look at to make sure parents have a choice of settings. But we don't want too many surplus places because this would perhaps impact on the viability of settings as well. So it's a balance between those two, making sure there are enough for parental choice but not too many. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Julia. I just wanted to reiterate there's some comments that have come through, or questions that have come through the chat, and one in particular, Jade, thank you. Are these numbers based on now or after the expansion in April? Rose very kindly has included the DFE data that they have given us about supply and demand. But as Julia has said throughout the presentation, this is our sufficiency assessment. We can only work with what we got. And our data essentially comes from the GP data in regards to childbirth, and essentially by the time we get it is nearly a year out of date. So that is why it's so important that we ask you to, as Julia's reiterated, that you complete the self-update forms. Also, our data is what Ofsted say your maximum amount of places you can offer. And again, as Julia has stated, you know, there may be reasons why you've capped numbers for staff or recruitment difficulties, or that you haven't had the demand there, so you've reduced your numbers, etc., etc. There's so many factors. We've got them also, unlike schools, a massive learning curve for me, I have to say, in the last 12 months. But unlike schools, you don't have catchment areas. So whereas we can look at a catchment area, we can see what the population is, we can see what the age ranges of the children are. We don't have that in early years because parents can choose to go anywhere and anywhere, and they may choose a commuter route, they may choose a provision next to their work, they may choose a provision in their hometown or a home village, etc., etc. So there are so many factors that impact on us being able to assess supply and demand. So it's very much, we use the data as a starting point for us. We use the data to provide that base. And as Julia said, that's why you probably have had contact with Rose, who's just checking, and Julia's going to go on to talk about the survey, which will show you a stark difference necessarily to what our data says. So overall, Somerset, with the increase and expansion of early years, is showing that we have sufficiency of places across the Somerset County. In reality, the truth is yes, we've got excess places, and in particular in rural provision, but our urban towns, where the demand is there, we are not sufficient. So that's why our sufficiency shows that we have overall sufficiency. But when you drill down and look at it, we know those places aren't necessarily in the right places to meet the demand. So but we have to have a base, we have to have a starting base. But I'm going to hand back to Julia, because actually really interesting data has come from the survey. So back to you, Julia.
Thanks, Sarah. Okay, so back in the autumn, we sent out a survey to providers on a variety of subjects, but a lot of it was on about sufficiency and whether you have places available or not, just to give us that in the field, on the ground information. So a fantastic 49% of group childcare group childcare providers responded, which is fantastic. And you'll see the headline figure there, 65% of those reported that they occupancy, they were full or nearly full. Okay. So of those, 35% had no places available for the under twos. 42% had just 1 to 3 places, and half had a waiting list. So I think that shows particularly the situation for our baby places. And of course, that entitlement is going to come for children aged 9 months and up in September. Only 40% of the group providers who responded took children under 2. Okay, so there's a lot of providers out there who take from 2, not so many who take the babies. So for 2-year-olds, the picture was slightly better in terms of occupancy. So a quarter were full essentially, half only had a few places, and when just under half had a waiting list. And for 3 and 4-year-olds, the situation is a lot better. That tends to be the ones where we do have enough places. Okay, thank you. Right, so providers were asked to choose a statement that reflects their overall occupancy. So 82% of those who are open a long week were full or nearly full. Okay, so those who are open for 45 hours or more, they were full or nearly full in terms of their places. Only 3% said they've got a significant number of places available. Okay, half of those with shorter weeks responded that they were full or nearly full. So it's quite a difference between the two. And 13% of those said they had a lot of places. So there seems to be a correlation between demand and the number of hours that can be offered. I guess reflecting what parents need in terms of their working pattern. Okay, thank you. Okay, childminders. So nearly a third of our childminders responded to the survey, which is fantastic, and almost all of them said they are full or nearly full. And again, the pattern was fairly similar with the group ones. Most had no extra places. Over half had a waiting list for those baby places. And of course, childminders, if they're working singly, are only able to take 1 child under 1. 2-year-old, similar pattern, not quite as bad. But the 3 and 4-year-olds, almost none had a waiting list there. And all our childminders who responded did take children under babies. So they're going to be a very important part of our offer for places for the expanded childcare offer there. Thank you. Just whiz through some of these. They kind of reflect what we found theoretically. These are our hotspots. So Burnham and Highbridge, looking at difficulties for 2-year-olds and babies. Same in Frome. Shepton Mallet, possible for places as well. Most of them you'll see Yeovil, Ilminster, it's those baby places, and 2-year-olds where we're looking, it's going to be a squeeze. If not, we're going to not have enough places. Okay, and I think a quick trot through some of these hotspots. Thank you. Okay, so Taunton providers, these are results for individual providers, although we've taken the names out. So the red is highlighting where we've got no places, no additional places available, particularly in those childminders, as you see at the bottom of the table there. Okay, next. Bridgewater North Petherton. A lot of red, a lot of pink on there, which is not many places. Fantastic proportion of group providers in Bridgewater who completed the survey. And as you see, childminders full. Thank you. Same with Wellington. It's all red or pink there, so no additional places or very few additional places available. And even better. Oh, sorry, I was going to say, look at that, 100% of Wellington providers.
Yeah, and also I would have to just, sorry, Julia, to interrupt. Okay. Wellington has, following a meeting actually that I had with the team this morning, Wellington has a massive housing development all around Wellington, which is going to put additional pressure, which aren't included in the current data. Because they're pre-applications, they're not approved applications, but if they get approved, then our sufficiency in Wellington is going to be greatly impacted.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. This is just the last one, actually. So Highbridge and Burnham-on-Sea, we didn't get a lot of data back, as you can see, from our group providers. So when we send out our next survey, those of you who haven't completed, please, I would encourage you to complete our survey, because it gives us vital information when we're looking at planning places, whether we need additional places, or what's coming in the pipeline in terms of housing, and of course this new offer. So, yep, thank you. I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Julia. So, you know, as highlighted with just those few slides, although our sufficiency is saying that we're good across Somerset, you can see that we are actually borderline sufficient in specific areas. And that's where we need you, you know, we're providing you this with you, we're providing this information for you. And quite rightly, as Julia said, when we pop out surveys, we do appreciate it takes you a bit of time to complete, and we do appreciate everybody is absolutely snowed under with work. But actually, if we can get survey information back, if we can get this information back, that gives us better intel as to how to support you as providers and know where we need to target our resource. And of course, you know, we know that Somerset has a massive build out rate as well with new housing development, so keeping an eye on that. So our statistical data does not always mirror what is happening on the front line and what you guys are experiencing. So this is the opportunity for you to take the information that we have, look at your geographical position, think about the families that use you, think about what work looks like in your area, what the potential demand is. This is all information that supports you to think about your vision, your future viability, and where you want to be, and what your operational delivery needs to meet those demands. And I think the most crucial one there was that survey response about operational hours and the ones that you know, the settings that aren't able or not in the situation to deliver more hours actually have more vacancies than those settings that are providing those more hours. So it's just food for thought, stuff to consider. So I'm just going to run through a couple of slides now, and then Nikki's going to come in and we're going to then open it up to the floor for questions. So future support. So what are we doing? So Julia, who's just spoken, Julia Barnford, she's a senior officer in my team, and she is the dedicated lead for the early years expansion. So she will be monitoring, reviewing, we have to report back to the DFE regularly, and Julia is taking the lead on that. We have a dedicated lead for wraparound care and the wraparound expansion, which is Catherine Bird, known as Cat, who spoke earlier, and she will be leading on that wraparound expansion. We have a little more time to work on that wraparound expansion, but I have to say it is a massive agenda between now and 2026 in regards to that, and it will affect some of you as early years providers, because you may well be wanting to provide that additional wraparound care for primary school age children. And also, again, as reiterated by Julia, our childminders across the county will also be playing a major part. Any questions, concerns, wants, asks, support, please do not hesitate to contact our Education Places email address, and either Kat or Julia will pick it up, and if they aren't able to answer those queries or questions, we will signpost you to someone that can. We have received some funding, and I'll talk about funding shortly, but in regards to the rollout of this programme, and we are looking to recruit a wraparound support officer that will work alongside Kat to roll out this agenda, the wraparound agenda. This team, our team, my team, do and will continue to offer business support from either any one of us, depending on where you are in the county. We will support in looking at your operational delivery. If that's what you want, we can provide sufficiency assessments. We can have honed in sufficiency assessments, so you've got the data, and we can support in that way. We are also introducing, Rose in my team is currently compiling the annual sufficiency assessment, and in that annual sufficiency assessment we are also putting in economical development and commercial development. So within that sufficiency assessment we have now got data and information about the working patterns in specific areas and what the potential demand might look like around those working patterns. We will be popping out social media posts for parents around targeted recruitment, and we would ask you to share that. We'll also be putting various posts out around information that comes in as and when, and obviously we'll also make sure that we provide updates within the early years bulletin that comes from the early years email address. Just to say that that's my email address. So I am the service manager for Education Places and Strategy. So I have the overarching responsibility to ensure that these agendas are rolled out and we have sufficiency of places, and that is also my address. Thanks, Kat. Financial support, which I'm sure you're all wanting to hear about. So the DFE, or the central government, have provided a capital grant to the local authority, and we've had no input on how much we get. It's been an allocation, and we've received just under £1 million. The unhelpful element of that is that they haven't identified what is early years expansion and what is wraparound expansion. They have clumped it together. So what we have been given is a guidance, and they are saying that 80%, which is about 800,000, is towards the early years expansion, and 20% is for the wraparound provision. And as you can imagine, the size of the county, that amount of money isn't going to go far. So we're not in a situation where we're looking to build nurseries, new nurseries, or anything like that. The money just doesn't stretch to it. But what we are interested in is supporting our current providers in looking at options to expand their provision, and in particular those baby places, because we've got great settings delivering 2-year-old provision, but those baby places are where we're going to become unstuck. So Julia has created a interest form, a note of interest form, and Julia, can I ask that that link is popped into the chat? And if you're thinking about, oh, thank you, Rose. If you're thinking about expanding and you are looking to move your provision forward, then we would welcome your expression of interest. Now, that doesn't matter if you're saying, oh, I might want to expand with some capital. That's fine, but we also want to hear from you if you want to expand and you don't necessarily need capital, but you might need some support in another way. As I say, it's not an infinite pot, and it will be based on our sufficiency hotspots as a local authority. It will be an application process. It will have to go through the local authorities governance processes, but our team is here to help you and try to support you through those processes. The deadline for expressions of interest is the 18th of February, and we're just working up now the criteria, utilising the information and guidance that the DFE have provided, which has only just come out. As those that have been historically in the industry know, that we receive information very late in the day, so it tends to be a quick turnaround. The revenue grant, we have 2 revenue grants. We have a revenue capacity grant for the local authority for the early years expansion, and we also have a wraparound revenue grant, but we will not receive the wraparound revenue grant until I think Kat said June, July, when I spoke with her earlier.
Yeah, June, July is when we are expecting it.
Yeah, thank you, Kat. So the revenue grant that we've received for the local authority for the early years expansion is for the local authority's capacity. Now, when we look at that, it was a dip in the ocean. It was less than £100,000. And that funding is going to be used to support our core data team, who's going to obviously have an increased workload to facilitate all the new applications for the extended entitlement. So with some support is going there. We're also looking at support within the various teams in ensuring that we meet the needs, but we're also looking to ring fence some revenue funding for early years providers who are looking to expand and may just need a little bit of extra help. Now, part of that grant is also going to pay, we're going to reintroduce the SLA with DAS, the Dillington recruitment team, where we are going to be able to fund for free advertisements for your for any vacancies that you might have. Also, the DFE have literally, that came out yesterday, and it will be coming out to you guys in information. They have also launched a recruitment support, and this is where the snapshot there says find a job, but actually the detail is the same. So you can again post job vacancies. So you create an account, you can search for job vacancies, but you can also post your job vacancies on that website free of charge. So that's a national element that's also in supporting the recruitment. So again, that should be coming out from the early years team email box to give you information on that and how to sign up. So I would encourage you to sign up to that. As soon as we have dealt with the processes and procedures and got the information about how we access the DAS support and recruitment, then we will get that out to you again, either via the early years e-bulletin or as a mail out from the early years email address. And of course, social media, will continue to post on social media. So again, you know, there's still a lot of work to do, but with limited information that we've had up until now. It's something that we are absolutely focusing on, and I know Julia is working hard to pull up that information and get the level of detail out to you. But if you are looking to expand, then please do let us know, and we can and then we can make contact and have those discussions with you. And I noted that there's some responses in the chat. Kat, can you see those? Right,
Yes.
so how do you propose your nurseries to be sustainable if the hourly rate does not cover their own fees? Would you consider nurseries to be able to charge a top-up fee with the increase of the minimum wage, energy prices, food bills, etc.? I'm going to refer back to, and I totally understand where you're coming from. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you look at it, depending on whether you're a provider or a parent, and probably as you've heard on the news recently, there was Jeremy Vine on Radio 2 the other day. No, providers are not allowed to charge a top-up at this moment in point. The current provider agreement remains the same. Additional services which are identified and voluntary to parents are still applicable. However, a top-up is not allowed to be charged, and that's clearly defined from the guidance from the DFE and in the provider agreement. And as I say, I appreciate the level of detail in regards to the hourly rate isn't with you yet, but I think it's a case of we need to see what that hourly rate looks like into the future. Whereas that, no, I think I've answered that. We presume you'll be removing the word voluntary from the consumables to ensure we remain sustainable. Again, no, it has to state that it is a voluntary contribution, and providers need to work with parents to find workarounds for such things. I've got how are we auditing this? I'm sorry, I'm just going to stay on this for a second. As you are aware, the local authority has a legal requirement to audit, and that is done from my team. So Julia and Kat will do audits. Obviously, we can't do every single setting, but what will happen, and what we do is if there is a complaint made from a parent, we follow the complaints process and it is actioned. And then obviously we also have the auditing, where we do a percentage of providers over a period of time, and obviously anything that's picked up there will be addressed. I'm going to leave it there because, as I said, we are going to do questions and answers at the end of the session. I am going to pass over, if I may, to Nikki. Nikki, are you with us?
I'm with you.
Brilliant. So I'm going to pass over to Nikki because, again, part of that funding that we've received for the rollout of the early years entitlement includes the offer that we have commissioned Nikki's team to deliver. So over to you, Nikki.
If we can have the next slide, that'd be lovely. So as Sarah said, this is to support the wraparound expansion programme. The majority will be offered virtually, but we have added a few face-to-face sessions, and they will be offered west and east of the county. All dates and times, etc., will be in the February newsletter. So this is a brief overview tonight, and I want to give you time for those questions and answers. So I'm sure you have lots. Now, the first course starts at the 29th of April, so it's after the Easter break. You'll be able to book on these courses from the 1st of March at the Support Services for Education website, but they will be going out in the February news bulletin. We will be promoting through our social medias near the time. So please, just be aware that these are coming and they're out there for early years, and we're doing wraparound. So the first slide, I'm not going to read through this, you're all able to do that, but we've been commissioned to do supporting quality provision for 2 to 3 years to help those that are going to expand into the 2 years bracket, with the funding starting as in April. And we're going to be looking at supporting quality provision for 0 to 2 years. So again, this is something new. This is going to be new to you, think actually, yes, we could offer babies. We have space, we have capacity. Actually, this then will be relevant to you. What I will say is Sarah's given us a little, or hopefully will be giving us a little bit of money to put on some ad hoc courses. So I'm going to ask you if there's anything you think you would like around expanding and developing, please type that into the chat and then I'll have a conversation with Sarah and we'll take that on board. Now, both of these courses are looking at quality. So they will cover those areas that are mentioned there, but it will be reflectively looking at these. We'll be looking at the prime areas, the environment, working in partnership, transitions, and the role of the practitioner, but they will specifically be linked to 0 to 2 years, 2 to 3. Don't please think, oh, I'll just go to the 0 to 2 and that's everything I know. It won't. It will be dedicated to the 0 to 2 years. So if we go on to the next one. Now, this is around the wraparound side of the expansion, which I know Kat is going to be leading on. So again, these start in the summer term 2024. So that's setting up a wraparound service. So if some of you are in schools and you think, well, actually, yes, I'd like to do that, but how do we go about that? It'll be looking at the 6 steps to setting up a wraparound provision. That starts in April. So again, that gives you that time to think about actually, yeah, we're going to look at that. Maybe we'll start in September. And we're also going to be doing about supporting quality wraparound provision, because this is different to early years. Your children will have more of a voice, and that's what we want to be looking at. We want to be looking at those children's needs when they're in your provision and that role of their practitioner, because it will be different. The environment will be different. So again, and we're going to roll those out through the summer up into the spring 2025. And there will be 6 virtual courses, and timings again will be AM and PM. If you would like an evening course, you think actually, because we do a 7 till 9 or 6:30 to 8:30, then again, put that in the chat and we will take that on board. We are just setting this up now. We have the dates. We're looking for venues. So if any of you got any venues in the east of the county, we'd be interested in knowing about those as well, please. And the last one that we're going to set up is on the next slide. Financial management of a wraparound provision. And again, it's about operating a successful business, because actually you need to look at financial monitoring and forecasts. We need strategies to support a sustainable business model, which is what this programme is about. You get to 2026 and you need to be a sustainable business. So we're going to be looking at marketing and different things. Again, they are starting in May. They're going to roll right through to spring 2026. And they're all going to be virtual courses. And again, we've done AM and PM, which is morning and afternoon, because we think it might be business managers from schools. If you would like an evening course, again, please put that into the chat for us. Now, I'm going to put a plea on the back of what Sarah said a bit earlier. Sarah mentioned about a survey and about the importance of that survey. We are going to send a survey out to you about training needs, and I know I'm hijacking Sarah a minute of this. Part of the 3% and the survey that you completed said you wanted quality training provided. We need to know what training you would like. So we're going to send you a Microsoft Forms. It will be all come through on email. It will also be in the news bulletin. It will also be on social media. Please, can we have such a successful turnaround that you did for the Education Places survey, and tell us what you want. Now, we put a lot of courses on there that we don't do now, but we're willing to do. If we're not meeting your needs, then please write that in the other box. So again, with all of this training and the training that you want, hopefully we can offer and meet everybody's needs. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Thank you, Nikki. Very much appreciated. So yeah, so a whole host of information has been provided tonight, apart from probably the one thing that you really wanted to know, which we're unable to do. But what I am wanting to do now is to open up. We've got a few minutes. We're just on 7:10.